Very much. Let's bring in CNN legal analyst, former federal prosecutor Elie Honig. Elie, the lengths the Trump administration went to target American journalists, it's so disturbing. It's frankly reprehensible. What's your reaction as someone who used to work at the Justice Department?
Yeah, Wolf, anybody who has the privilege of representing the United States as a federal prosecutor for the Justice Department is given enormous power and enormous discretion. It's really staggering how much power prosecutors have. And it really falls to the integrity and the good judgment and sense of fair play of each individual. In this case, Wolf, unless there was an imminent and grave threat, and there's zero to indicate that, then this was a monumental abuse of power, and it had to go to the top of the Justice Department because under Justice Department regulations, this would have to have been approved by the Attorney General.
This wasn't just her phone number at the Pentagon, Elie. This was her home phone, her cell phones, her personal email accounts. The scope of this intrusion is really staggering, isn't it?
It is, Wolf. It's an incredibly invasive procedure, and DOJ regulations recognize because the First Amendment is at stake here. The First Amendment, of course, is the cornerstone, the heart of our democracy. And when the Justice Department obtains this information through subpoena, an almost entirely one-sided process, that sheds a real pall over the First Amendment. That's a real threat to the First Amendment because it will frighten people. It will deter them from talking to journalists because if they believe, well, if I speak to this journalist, Barbara Starr or anybody else, DOJ may pull those records and see that I'm talking to her. And so that's the danger really at issue here, Wolf.
The former President Trump, he, as all of us remember, during those 4 years, he almost always viciously attacked the news media through his campaign, through his presidency. How chilling is it to see that the Justice Department followed suit and targeted American journalists like this?
Yeah, Wolf, one of the most devastating legacies of the Trump administration is that he continually vilified and attacked the media. How many times did he lash out over Twitter or elsewhere about the fake news or worse than that? And it's really disturbing to see that the Justice Department, as it did all too often under Donald Trump, not only went along with it, but facilitated it and promoted it. And we know from Jessica's reporting that this application to subpoena the information relating to Barbara Starr, the approval was given in 2020. So unless it happened in the very last week of December, it would have been Bill Barr who approved it. And again, that's all too characteristic of the way Bill Barr enabled Donald Trump's absolute worst instincts.
Yeah, Trump used to say almost all the time, the news media were the enemy of the American people. It's just the latest example. Just in the last 2 weeks, we learned that the Trump Justice Department secretly obtained phone records of several Washington Post reporters, not just Barbara Starr, our Pentagon correspondent, who's distinguished, highly regarded, been there for many years. How persuasive was this, all of this potentially? Pervasive was this?
Yeah, look. Yeah, well, that's the big question. How pervasive was this? How far did it go? How wide did it go? There could well be more because the way these orders work and the way it worked with respect to Barbara Starr is DOJ has the ability to go to a court and say, we want to get this information, but we don't want to notify the journalist or the media organization. And that puts the journalist and the media organization in an especially difficult position because we, CNN or Barbara Starr, doesn't even have the ability to go to court and say, Judge, we want to fight this. It's a one-sided fight. And I believe that this information, we've already seen it start to trickle out. I think more and more of it will come out. I think there's a real impetus here for the new Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to expose whatever was done, to reveal whatever was done, and to fix it.
Yeah, we got to learn exactly what happened in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. We have something called freedom of the press here in the United States, and that has to be cherished. It has to be honored. Elie, thank you very, very much. Elie Honig.